Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back. This is the 30-minute pitch. I am your host, Austin Robillard. We are here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope everybody's new year has started off well. I know mine has, and Mandy on the other side definitely has too. And we're back with the 30-minute pitch. I'm very excited to be talking football again with you guys. And of course, as always, and this is going to be a theme here, we're presented by Dangerous Minds Brewing Company. Dangerous Minds, an awesome brewery down in Pompano Beach, located at the city center. Man, I have to thank them so much for their continued support. We've had a watch party over there with the Miami Heat, and just something I want to tell you guys about that's going on over at Dangerous Minds. They are always running their own kinds of events and everything like that. And on January 12th, as you can see right there in front of you, they are having a Croatian food night for $18 a person. Make sure you give a call. Between 6 and 9 p.m. Reservations are required. So like I said, make sure you give a call. It looks like they're going to be making some fire dishes here. I looked up the pronunciation for this. I don't know if I'm going to hit this on the head, but cevapici is a grilled dish of mincemeat traditionally found in the countries of Southeast Europe, and this is why they're going with the Croatian food night. You also have the Juvek rice, a one-pot dish containing a ton of vegetables, rice, and seasonings. The dish itself looks awesome, and I think that it's going to be something that's really, really good for a lot of people to go enjoy. So, like I said, make sure you give a call, put in a reservation between 6 and 9 p.m. on Wednesday, January 12th. So that's next week. And if you want their phone number, it is listed there, but I'll tell you now, 954-657-8676. And let me just say this too. Dangerous Minds at all times has great food and beverage options, no matter what. Their specialty house-made pizza is a couple of the really good appetizers. The pretzel is one of my favorites, as well as they call it just the crust. An awesome marinara sauce with that, and then all of their beer as well. I mean, they all make it fresh there. A ton of different things on tap. You can get it in all these different sizes. You can try and look for your favorites. There's a location there right there at Pompano Beach City Center here in Broward County. They are open every day from 1 to 10. They do have nights where there is live music. You can go look at their website and see for that kind of stuff. And here's a lot of the food options that they have. And there's a delicious pizza that I'm looking for. Man, some of that stuff is just so good. So I highly recommend that you guys go check out Dangerous Minds. They have been phenomenal to me. I would like to be phenomenal back to them. Go check them out. And I know that we are trying to plan something through 5 Reasons with them to have some sort of event. We were meant to have one a little while ago. We did have one a little while ago with the Miami Heat watch party, but we're looking for something to do again because they're just the greatest hosts and they've got great food and great beer and even wine options. So make sure you go check them out, Dangerous Minds Brewing. And as always, thank you guys. Now let's get right into it. Today, as you can probably tell from the title, we are talking about Inter Miami. And, a lot of time when we do this show, we talk about world football. But I think it's important right now, even with, it being a World Cup year, talk about the local club a little bit, right? And especially in a time where this is probably the most important offseason ever, even, breaking the inaugural offseason's importance. This offseason is something that does not really compare to any of the off seasons Miami has had. Um, I want to start by saying this team is going to look a hell of a lot different than it did in the first 2 seasons, and with Chris Henderson and Phil Neville running the office up there, even Darren Powell, I know he's got a lot to say in a lot of things. Miami's going to have a quite the different team. And if you've been keeping up, you will notice that they started off the offseason not too long ago. Everything is kind of just kicking off like as right now as we speak. And the reason for that is the season starts really soon, guys. I believe preseason for MLS teams kick off on January 17th. At least that's the date I have in my head for Inter Miami. And they started off, like I said, pretty early here, especially in December. And the first big move that happened was the Lewis Morgan trade, and something that had a lot of fans bamboozled. However, at the same time, you have to remember that Inter Miami are going into these next 2 seasons with, the sanctions from the Mcveigh investigation on the line, and that's that's kind of why these kinds of moves are happening. The Lewis Morgan trade has happened. Some of the signings and deals you've seen have happened. They need to get their money back. They need to find a way to get money for players that they have, and be able to still build a sufficient roster while taking in the punishments of the Mcweety investigation. So Lewis Morgan was traded away to Red Bulls New York for $1.2 million, and I can't say enough about Lewis Morgan as a player. I can't say enough about Lewis Morgan as a person, and I think every fan knows that he was a phenomenal person on and off the field. Everybody loved the effort that he put in, week in and week out. The only player to start every single game in Inter Miami's history thus far, and that did not go unnoticed. This guy was absolutely loved, and there's not enough good things you can say about him, right? It's just it's something that is unfortunate that had to happen, but like I said, it had to happen. They had to do this, and that happened over December 12th, I believe, is the day this all happened. And then the other thing that happened on that same exact day, actually, Miami made three signings all the way back in December 12th. Was the signing of Jean Mota, the Brazilian midfielder from Santos, looking to be possibly Gregory's partner. I know that him and Gregory both have a history, and we know how much fans are loving Gregory, the club's captain, made official like halfway through the season last year, and it looks like he has a Brazilian partner in the midfield, and it's a move that, you know, what with the reports of the transfer fee and how much salary he's going to be making, seems to be not necessarily low risk, but it's not too much of a risk. And you're not putting too much money into Gene Mota coming here, and you're not putting too much money into his, pockets every single season. And under the MLS salary cap, to get a bargain like this on a guy like Gene Mota, I think that they can, extract more value out of him than you're actually giving him, and that's something that Chris Henderson is going to be keen on. I'm going to be saying that a lot. It's maximizing value on this roster, and if they aren't able to do that, they're not going to be able to be successful, especially with the sanctions at play. However, they've already done almost enough to mitigate these sanctions. Um, and here's another example of that. Right here in front of you, Bryce Duke signs midfielder, a homegrown player. The guy is a young talent, right? And Miami went out and acquired him from LAFC for $100,000 in GAM. Now, in the sanctions, GAM is what was taken away from Inter Miami. And the fact that they were able to go out and spend some to get a player like Bryce Duke just shows that they've already mitigated the sanctions. They've done enough to figure out, how to manage with it. They got the money back from the Lewis Morgan deal. They're getting a lot of different players off of the books going into 2022. And I'm going to have to name five of those massive ones. But Bryce Duke is a player that shows exactly that Miami has found a way to still be able to use allocation money in ways that you didn't think were necessarily possible, with them being reduced by 25% of their allocation money. So this was a huge deal. This just showed to me that Chris Henderson has got it down. And other than the Lewis Morgan trade, one more deal that happened on that same day was Victor Ulloa was re-signed for possibly a lesser deal than he was originally given. They had declined his contract option, but Victor Ulloa is still on the team, and I think that he is a depth piece that Phil Neville likes a lot. I think that he is somebody who can play in multiple positions, as we saw last season. Now, granted, his time at right back was unprecedented, but however, he did a job. It wasn't always pretty, but he did a job, and the team just overall wasn't great, as we all know. So can't put everything on Victor, but Victor as a depth piece and as a locker room guy, I think that's where he excels at. And Phil Neville has recognized that. Henderson has recognized that, and that's why he's back on the team. Now, past December 12th, there wasn't much going on until some of the big news that happened. There were a couple of trades and signings. So the first one was Ariel Lasseter from Houston Dynamo, the Costa Rican international, the son of Roy Lasseter, the American player. Have signed him. He's a striker slash winger. It's on a relatively small deal. That's someone to look out for sure at only like 25 or 26 years old. He's not making too much money either, so there's a lot there. And I think another thing too, that signing, or I guess it was a trade for Lasseter, was only for 100K in GAM, just like the Bryce Duke trade. And they also brought in Mo Adams, a very versatile player. He can play at midfield, he can play at a fullback position. Mo Adams from Atlanta United was traded for. Dylan Castanera is the one that left in that trade. I guess it was third string, fourth string goalkeeper this year. Played a lot for Fort Lauderdale CF. I have talked to the guy, and he seems like a cool dude. But for me personally, he'll be missed. I know he didn't get any play time with the first team, but Castanera's gone. His rights are with Atlanta. I believe that they are going to pick him up. But Mo Adams gets to come to Inter Miami on this deal, and it's another player like Victor Ulloa who can play in multiple positions, and that's something that I've noticed with these signings so far, is that Chris Henderson's going out for players that don't just stick to one job. It's a player that you can put in different situations, in different scenarios, in different play styles, and still be able to hold their own. And I think that that's going to be a theme going into 2022. Now, a week later, after those two deals, the first major one was announced, and I say major because of the money at stake here. Julian Carranza, a player who has only scored 3 goals in his entire Inter Miami career as a striker, by the way, was traded away to Philadelphia for a second round MLS Super Draft pick. Basically, he was traded away because Miami wanted him off the books, and they're calling it a loan. It is a loan. I believe there is an option to buy. However, the fact that there was a quote unquote transfer, a loan fee, which was the second round draft pick, is extremely important, and I'll get into why. Julian Carranza's money is off the books. Julian Carranza was making a lot of money, especially so much money that it snuck into the allocation money that Miami was being reduced by the sanctions. To get that off of the books cannot go understated. And for me, this was almost the impossible deal that should never have been pulled off. They shouldn't have been able to do this, but they did. Chris Henderson and Phil Neville did it. And, all the best to Julian Carranza. However, I don't think that he was going to be an integral part to this team in 2022 and onward. He's still young. There's still time for him to develop. And maybe he can do that in Philadelphia. Like I said, I wish him all the best, but it wasn't working in 2 years at Inter Miami. I don't know how many more chances you can necessarily give a player. And I think that their idea was just in a different direction than Carranza. And this loan deal, this trade, was something that, like I said, freed up a ton of money, gets a player off the books who wasn't contributing. And this would be the opposite of maximizing value to keep Julian Carranza on the roster. He was minimizing the value that they were spending for output on the pitch. And this deal is huge, and it's going to give Miami a lot of freedom. And when I say a lot of freedom, I mean it frees up so much money that it can't really go understated. I'm shocked that they got to do this, and I wish them all the best. Now, as for the Philadelphia perspective, if any Philadelphia Union fans are watching, this guy is young and has potential. If you're able to extract it, all power to you, right? All power to you. I mean, he has shown glimpses, right? And he has this amazing ability to, draw fouls, get under defenders' skins. We saw that game in Orlando in the first season, or against Orlando in the first season. I guess it was in Orlando. It was the MLS's back tournament where he scored those 2 goals in a 3-2 victory. It wasn't the MLS's back tournament. Sorry, it was in Orlando. But anyway, there's potential for this guy to be really good. So as a 1-year loan deal, this is a low risk, high potential ceiling move for Philadelphia. And if it works out for him, it works out for him. Now, another huge money move that was made by Inter Miami, and not necessarily made official yet, but Michelle Coffin from the Miami Herald reported just a couple nights ago that Blaise Mcsweety was not in the plans, and he's not expected to return to an on-field role in 2022. And that's a designated player. That's a DP. That's a guy who gets the big bucks with reason, or what we thought was going to be with reason. And in the first 2 seasons, and especially last year, just didn't seem to work out. It was a rough watch from time to time with Mcsweety on the field. The amount of times he was benched, the amount of times he, you know, started and had to be pulled off. There was a lot going on there with his play, but it was not something that was pretty. And when this report from the Miami Herald and Michelle Kaufman came out, it showed me again that Miami's not necessarily playing around, and however they can get these big money players off the books, they're going to. They have to. And when they do this, I mean, at least I personally am hoping that there are some replacements on the way. Gene Mota could very well be the Matuidi replacement, and I've already spoken of him. That pairing in the midfield, that Brazilian pairing in the midfield, could be something that's really, really, really good. But I think that there's room for more. With Matuidi not being on the roster in whatever way they do it, it opens up a DP slot. It opens up, a potential for a big money, high profile name to get here. And I'm not saying a 35 or 36-year-old. I'm saying somebody who could actually make an impact for the next 5 years, right? And I think that that's somebody. There is somebody that they're probably looking at, and I can't imagine that, in the next 2 seasons, that person isn't brought in. If it's not January, it might be in the summer. And if it's not in the summer, it could be next January. But during these sanction years, they need to bring in somebody who's going to make an impact on the pitch. And by freeing up the money that they've already done with Carranza and now Matuidi and 3 more players I'm going to talk about, they're able to do these things. Matuidi not being able to play or not going to play is huge. It's massive. I talked about the Bryce Duke acquisition from LAFC. Another one of those versatile guys who could play in multiple positions. I think that this guy, as a forward playmaker, I guess just to keep it as broad as possible, is probably what you're going to see him as, whether it's on the wing or as a number 10, or as an up and down midfielder. There's a lot from Bryce Duke that there is to love. And I think as a young player, if they're able to develop him into a regular starter or just a regular first team player, it could be huge. It could be huge. That was announced by the club. These couple other ones that I'm going to talk about have not necessarily been announced just yet, but we are expecting them in the next couple of days. The first one is Chris Mcveigh, a Swedish-American international, as a wing back from a club called Elfsborg to Miami as a signing. Now, I don't know too much about this guy, but what it does tell me is that they're trying to revamp the back line, especially the outside. Chris Mcveigh coming in could be, not necessarily an every game starter, but we'll have to see what he does in preseason. But Chris Henderson likes to bring in players who, I'm going to say it again, maximize value, who play above their wage. If they can get Chris Mcveigh on a relatively smaller deal and he becomes this every week starter, you're almost building a back line very similar to what Chris Henderson did in Seattle. And that's going to be key. That's going to be something that Miami are going to have to do. I believe Seattle this season, a back line that Chris Henderson built, was one of the lowest paid back lines in the league. I think bottom 5, bottom 10 at the very least. And they conceded the least amount of goals, or I guess tied for the least amount of goals in 2021. If Chris Henderson can replicate something like that, I mean, what else can you say other than thank you, right? And I think that this kind of Chris Mcveigh deal is a step in the right direction to try and achieve that. Now, another, I guess, defensive signing that has not been made official but is supposed to, at least very soon, is Breck Shea. Breck Shea has re-signed with the club, allegedly, and both these deals actually, Mcveigh and Shea, were reported by the Miami Herald in the same article that talked about Blaise. No, it didn't talk about Blaise Mcsweety. It talked about another big player. I don't want to spoil that yet. But Breck Shea's back, a fan favorite, right? Almost a meme player, but a fan favorite, and he's a guy that can do a job on all fronts. I mean, you put him on the left side, whether it's all the way at the back or all the way at the top, Breck Shea's there and he's going to do it. And I think that after declining his option, they probably wanted to get him on lesser money, and that's probably exactly what happened. It gives the club a little bit more room to make these other signings, and I'm sure that they threw like another team option in there after a year or 2 years just to make sure that they have the leverage in this situation. But Breck Shea's back, and I think that he could be a very useful player. He always is a useful player, as funny as it is, but he really is. I thought it was a free agent of all MLS players who were free agents that Miami should have prioritized from the beginning, and it seems like they did because they are bringing him back. And I didn't mean to say that as a joke or anything. Like, I genuinely meant that I thought that Breck Shea should be a player that Miami should try and bring back just because of the effort he puts on the field, his ability to just do a job. You know what to expect from him at all times. And he's been reliable. He's been durable, given that he was injured before coming to the club. And he's always just been available. And that's the guy that you want to have on your roster, in your locker room. I know he didn't cause any locker room issues. I believe there was a time where I think Phil Neville said that he was like the player that comes up to him the least to ask him about things or ask him about starts or anything like that. Breck Shea is just an easygoing guy and a guy that you want in your locker room and on your roster who can be available on game days. And I think that this deal, it was really, really, really smart. A deal that was made official by the club was a massive, massive one. The club's first designated player in history, Rodolfo Pizarro, was loaned to CF Monterrey in Mexico, a club I believe where he came from before joining Miami. Pizarro is not on the team, and I can't say anything other than I completely expected this to happen. And as unfortunate as it is, and as talented as a player as Rodolfo Pizarro is, it never seemed to work out here. It never seemed to work for him, for the team. He was the first goal scorer in history, but once Mcsweety and Gonzalo came, it just seemed like, you know, I it just didn't work. It just didn't work. And as unfortunate as it is, it's probably the best move for the player and for the club. Um, I am wishing Rodolfo all the best. I was a big advocate for him for a very long time. And I guess I still am. It's just I knew, you assess the reality of the situation and understand that it was not working. In all of 2022, it did not work despite his all-star bid. But it did not work. And I believe he's entering one of the last 2 years of his deal. This might be the last year of his deal, which makes this loan something that, it kind of just says here, play out your last year there. And then if there's that option to purchase, if Monterrey want to take him, they can take him. But you want to have Pizarro off your roster because you're going to start building without him. There's no reason to keep him on the team. Now, I need to explain a couple of quick rules here. Remember when I talked about Julian Carranza being loaned in that second round draft pick being very, very important? It's important because it's called a loan fee. There is something that Miami is getting in return for sending out a player on loan. And in MLS, there is, which is the second round draft pick, by the way. In MLS, there is a rule stating that I was not aware of until a couple of nights ago. There's a rule stating that if there is no loan fee and the club is paying X amount of the salary, then, especially for, let's say, Rodolfo Pizarro, his DP slot is not technically freed up. Okay. If Rodolfo Pizarro was sent to Monterrey and Monterrey was paying most of his salary and they sent back, let's say, a literal US dollar in return for the loan, then the DP slot that Pizarro was holding would be available. However, that's not the case in this deal. With Julian Carranza, his second round draft pick coming back, or the Miami second round draft pick that's getting acquired from Philadelphia coming back, opens up all of the money that Carranza was making. Philadelphia is taking care of the salary, or at least some of it, and Miami gets to open up money under Carranza. under what Carranza had. It is a little confusing. However, it does make some kind of sense. However, with the Pizarro deal, I'm sure people would have liked to see a DP slot freed up with him leaving. However, it just wasn't the case. And I honestly don't think it is as significant with the Mcsweety news, because with the Mcsweety news, we know a DP slot is freed up if he's not going to play. However, they offload him, or if he retires, or if they buy out his deal, or he goes to an off field role, that DP slot will be filled up because they won't be paying him salary. Now, there are different ways to look at this. The first one is, with Mcsweety gone, they'll be able to sign a DP. If Pizarro's spot was also freed up, I don't even think that Miami were able or would have been able to sign 2 DPs in the next 11 days. Like I said, preseason starts on the 17th. I don't think it's as significant because you're at least freeing up a DP slot, right? But if you have 2 open, I don't think it would have been right by us, the analysts, and us, the fans, to expect Miami to fill up both of those DP slots. It just would have been a little outlandish to think that that was going to happen. But nonetheless, with Pizarro's deal expiring soon, whether it's this year or the next, I have to do my research on that. Carranza's money off the books and getting that feedback and opening up that money, they've done more than enough, especially with Mcsweety being out, if he is out, and opening up another DP slot in that way. And I think that that's more than enough. As long as you're freeing up the money and you have that at least one DP slot, they'll be okay for 2022. The last thing is about 2 different players, okay? LGP and Figal, the 2 Argentine center backs who have played a ton for this club, are looking like they won't be with the team in 2022. And this is not something to take lightly. It's very, very important. However, both these guys, as much as I love their aggressive play style, it costs the team at times. You have to say it. It did. Whether it's LGP or Figal trying to make that pass or trying to make that run in the midfield or putting in a tackle to get the yellow cards and then build up suspensions, they cost the team at times. And when you're making as much money as both of those guys are, both those guys, by the way, were making the allocation money that I've been talking about so much, because they did make over the max salary cap of $612,500. Because they were making more than that, because they were so susceptible to all of these not necessarily mistakes, but sometimes mistakes, sometimes just harsh play and suspensions, especially not being available. Doesn't seem like they're not Chris Henderson players. They're just not. And I think both those guys are extremely talented. LGP is rumored to go back to River Plate on a loan. You're going to notice a common theme here with these loan deals. And Nico Figo, I'm not sure whether it's a loan or a signing, but he'll be headed off to Boca Juniors most likely. And that should be announced, let's say, in the next 2 weeks, potentially. I have nothing official on this, but it's what I'm hearing the most of. Both these guys are out, and Miami's got to build their back line. Miami has to build their back line. The only other center backs that are on the roster right now, there's 4 if both those guys are gone. Ryan Shawcross, Christian McCoon, who, sure, I love, a young player who developed so well this year. Ian Frey, who tore his ACL last season after being signed from the academy team, but has potential, but he is 18 years old. And then also Jairo Quinteros, who's coming back from Bolivar from his loan. That's it. Those are the 4 center backs that are on the roster. And it's not enough. I think that you can expect some center back signings from Inter Miami or trades within the league for players who are not making near as much money as LGP and Figal were. And if both those guys are to be out, it also is freeing up a ton of money. And maybe Miami wants to bolster this attack that was lackluster in 2022 or 2021. Sorry. Maybe that's what they want to spend their money on. Maybe Chris Henderson can build this Seattle back line where one of the cheapest back lines in the league, yet only conceding 33 goals in 34 games. I mean, That's something that you're really looking for from a GM like Henderson. And I think that these potential moves for the center backs going to Argentina, especially to two big clubs, by the way, it would be awesome to see them play against each other with River Plate and Boca, given that rivalry. But with that happening, it just shows which direction Chris Henderson is headed with his team. They're getting all the big money players who did not play up to their salary off the books if they can. And we'll have to keep on seeing the signings that they bring in to try and bolster this team for 2022, 2023, and onward, because it's not just a 1 year project. It's not a 2 year project, because those are the years with the sanctions where you have to mitigate the sanctions and try and figure out how to maneuver around them. And it's going to be tough. It already has been tough. But like I said, they're doing very good at the moment to try and make sure that they're not as relevant as they would have been if you weren't making these offloading moves. With all that said, there's much to be excited about with Inter Miami. It's going to be a fresh start. It's going to be a brand new team. It's going to be a team that's young, hopefully hungry, and a team that maybe led by Gonzalo Higuain that can get themselves into a top 7 spot in the East. But there's a lot more work to do. There's a lot more work for Chris Henderson and Neville and even the players to do. Expect a ton of signings by this time next Thursday when we're talking on the 30-minute pitch. I expect a couple more moves to have been made official, and we'll talk about it at that time. With that said, Dangerous Minds Brewing Company, thank you so much for sponsoring the show. This has been the 30-minute pitch. Make sure you can, if you can, go check out Dangerous Minds Brewing Company here in Pompano Beach, located at the City Center. Check out their website if you want to look at the beer and the pizza I was talking about. Check out their Instagram and their Facebook at Dangerous Minds B or Dangerous Minds Brewing to look about the Croatian food night next Wednesday. $18 a person. Give a call. Make a reservation from 6 to 9. Looks awesome, and I know they're going to kill it. Thank you, Dangerous Minds, for sponsoring the 30-minute pitch. And for everybody listening, thank you so much. We will see you guys at this time next week. Peace out.